Well, I have on set today Council President Frank Earn and Councilwoman Gabrielle Cahill. We're here to discuss for a few minutes our dear friend, late friend Jim Bullard, who all three of us served with on the Township Council. What we're going to do is that we're going to get interviews with some of the folks that served with Jim on the Town Council, and some of the folks that he worked with over at the Senior Center and volunteered with, and some of the folks who he just loved having company with. And we're going to put together a half-hour show about the late Jim Bullard. So, Frank, I think we'll start with you first because you really worked with Jim probably for the longest time and volunteering with Babe Ruth baseball and Little League, and having gotten to know Jim through that venue right there. So what was your first thought when you first met Jim? When he got involved with baseball, and I know his son Lawrence was playing ball at the time and things like that. So, but what was your first thoughts on him?
I knew Jim for over 30 years. He started me off in the Pop Warner program, and it was all about the youth in Piscataway. Yeah. He wanted to make sure the youth in Piscataway had something to do the whole year long. You know, Pop Warner, football, baseball. He was just involved in everything. And he was my mentor. He started me in everything. I mean, we did Pop Warner, Babe Ruth, Little League, Municipal Lions, and then he got me involved in Town Council. Yeah. I mean, he was a really good guy.
So when Jim was going up through the ranks of baseball, and I mean by going in the ranks, he ended up being a Babe Ruth commissioner.
Yeah.
In that case, Frank, you might want to just explain a little bit what that's all about.
Well, I wasn't that much involved in the Babe Ruth program, but he was the commissioner of the Babe Ruth program, and he was also inducted into the Hall of Fame in Babe Ruth. Yeah, statewide.
Yeah.
It's sort of like the way they run the Pop Warner program. It's like your Central Jersey has their own committee. Same with Babe Ruth, and he was involved in that very heavily.
And that was even after his son Lawrence, his kids actually grew up and aged out of the program.
He stopped doing Babe Ruth, I think, about 3 years ago.
Yeah. So obviously, his kids are middle-aged adults.
They're well-grown, right?
Yeah. And but Jim, being the way Jim was, always wanted to be involved with sports youth programs.
Yes.
That was his way of keeping involved and helping the Piscataway youth out during that time. So Councilwoman Cahill, when you first met Jim, what was your thoughts on Jim?
I mean, he was really he was not a larger-than-life persona, right? He didn't talk about himself. He always but when I met him, he loomed large, meaning that he greeted me, I think, shortly after he was on council, maybe 2 years later. My mom came to live with me, a senior, and as we know, he advocated for seniors. So he was a great support for me, maybe a little bit more on the personal side, helping me navigate things for my mom, because now I became her full caregiver in our home. I mean, she could get about herself, but he showed me how to get like the really cool pill boxes. And when I couldn't find them, he said, "Don't worry, I'll get it." And he did. He provided just a ton of information for navigating the healthcare system. And for me, it was a super big help because, of course, bringing my mom in, and she had a tremendous fall, so there was some extra caregiving there for her. He just really helped us out, me and my family, during that period of time.
So even though he had time to, basically Jim had time for sports, I mean, Lois allowed him to do that, his bride. But the end of the day is his love was really at the senior building, right there. And I don't know, Frank, you might, and Councilman Cahill, you might want to push it. These are like plaques that are going to go up because we had a dedication of the room over in the senior center, the lab that was actually Jim's brainchild, along with Chora Lee, to build a computer lab to make folks, aging seniors, more computer literate, instead of having to rely on their 7-year-old grandchildren. But,
right.
These are the plaques that are going to go up in the room there. And
They're absolutely beautiful and really appropriate for
Yep.
all of the time that he dedicated to the seniors, and the computer room, of course, the lab room, the most
He
important.
was all about technology.
yes,
Yeah.
and the funny part is his successor, Dennis Espinoza, the first thing the seniors latched on to him and they wanted some upgrades in the room. So one of the things we're going to do is this year's budget, we're actually going to get all new computers because they're at their end of their lifespan anyway.
Certainly.
And we're going to upgrade the Wi-Fi in the room and stuff for the whole building. So I told Dennis now, along with you, Frank, you're like the new sitters over there for
They gotta carry the mantle.
ombudsman,
Yeah.
so to speak, that where Jim Bullard took place over there.
Right.
But,
I'd say Jim was like 3 councilmen in one.
yeah.
He dedicated his time, but it's also fitting that Councilman Espinoza is in the IT world
Yes,
too.
that's the ironic part.
It is.
So, and then that's why Jim was always happy that he was going to get involved with the IT. Well, listen, I want to thank you both for stopping by with some of your comments about our late colleague there, and we're going to have Councilman Camile Shaw and Councilwoman Michelle Lombardi on later on. But it's long overdue, and I think it was very appropriate that the computer lab be named after Jim Bullard, because much deserving naming of the room there. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that, we're gonna close out and go now to Councilman Camile Shaw and Michelle Lombardi.
Greetings. I am Dr. Christina Bullard-Lloyd. I am the daughter of James Bullard, and I would like to just give thank you to all of the township, the mayor, all the councilmen, Ward 2. My dad definitely loved the senior citizens and the youth, and I just want to say thank you for coming out and celebrating my father's life with us. I'm his daughter, his only daughter, a proud daughter.
On behalf of the Bullard family, we'd like to thank the Township of Piscataway for giving everything that you have to my family. We are grateful. Piscataway is a place that we've called home for over 40 years, a place that my father, Councilman Jim Bullard, loved and loved completely with all his heart. From the start of his township, in the early days in his township, he was grateful that he was able to get the opportunity to volunteer as not only a coach, but also an administrator in youth sports. And later, he got his ultimate dream when you elected him to be a council member for 3 terms. You see, he came here, he was not a citizen, but in wanting to reach his dream, he became a citizen and ultimately was able to lead and ultimately make major decisions within the township with all of the key stakeholders. And as a son and a proud son to him, I could tell you he was grateful. He was grateful for that opportunity. The Township of Piscataway, we will always love and hold dearly in our hearts. And I know till my dad's last day, he always wanted to know what was going on.
One thing that I will always hold close is the closeness that he has with my son. And a lot of people in the township knows that. Because when they came to the funeral, they were looking for my son. They were looking for my son. I guess they were looking for a little guy, but my son actually is taller than everybody. But yearly, my dad would make sure that on his calendar that he would come down here for his birthday. Even when there was no birthday party, we had to create one because my dad said he was coming. So that's just like one of the memories, just him as a grandparent to my son. He just was an amazing grandfather.
You know, one of the proudest moments in my dad's history within the township was the senior center. There he could go to a place and see not only his constituents, but his friends. He loved being there every day, hearing everything that was going on in Piscataway, but also educating our fellow citizens of Piscataway as to what was going on within the community. He loved being there. He loved working with everyone. He loved going to all the events that were going on. In addition to that, he equally loved the youth center and watching that being built and the groundbreaking for that. So between our youths and our seniors, Piscataway was the town for him, and it ultimately was a match made in heaven. Thank you.
My name is Tyree Lloyd. I am the grandson of Jim Bullard, also known as Papa Jim to me. My favorite memory was whenever he did come down here or whenever we had went to him, he looked at me as if I was his own son and treated me as if I was his own son. And I just really loved my own grandfather.
Well, we're fortunate enough to have back in studio 4th Ward Councilwoman Michelle Lombardi and at-large Councilman Camile Shaw, who continue discussions about our late dear friend Jim Bullard. So Camile, I know that you served you and Councilman Earn served a number of years on the rec board
Yes.
with Councilman Bullard and the
Yes.
Turn On Youth Coalition. Just give me a couple quick thoughts about Jim when you worked with him as a colleague on the commission.
I worked with Jim on a couple of the places together. Right here in studio, I was there with him, I think like 6 to 8 weeks training for how to run the studio and cameras and everything in 2001. And from 2001, we all together, me, Frank, and Jim, and the recreation. And plus, always in recreation, he brings some new ideas and some issues and what people say about that. So he always be a people voice. He go to senior center, always be a people voice because he also immigrant and I'm also immigrant. So he know how the immigrant people come from other country to US and what difficulty they go through. Like
Because he was an immigrant himself.
Yes, right. So language, computers. So he always come forward to people, help the people. That is more like helpingness nature. And he never be a same, ask questions, or he go personally himself for people and say, how you doing and all the stuff like that. So he's a people person, always. He love to talk to people and how he can help the people. That's why he's just good, satisfied for that.
Well, when we were in studio before with Councilwoman Cahill and Councilman Earn, talking about the rec commission is that even though his kids aged out of the sports in the town, he always stayed involved for 30 plus years in the recreation programming for the children and to seniors to a certain extent.
Yeah, and he got a 2 award from before we used to do volunteer award. He was one or 2 years in name of Jim Bullard for the award of that year.
Also right here with
right
the
here,
PCTV.
yeah.
Yeah, no. I think at one point, Jim was actually living over here in studio.
Oh, yeah.
Much to the chagrin of his wife, Lois.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Lombardi, Jim Bullard was an avid photographer. And we all saw the photographies. You want to give us some thoughts about Jim?
Sure, absolutely. When somebody like Jim passes away, it really does make you think he really did accomplish a lot in the time that he was here. From working with the youth at the Little League to all of his photography. He was very into the arts, photography. He always attended all of our local concerts. Then from advocating for the seniors, all his volunteerism here at PCTV, and then finally as a public servant. He really did leave a beautiful legacy behind. And when you think about that legacy, it makes you think what we should do is continue that legacy and to be a beautiful human like Jim Bullard was. Just keep his memory alive by being good people and advocating for the people and doing good things for the community of Piscataway. So he'll be truly, truly missed.
So I always remember like being in studio after we would do the Eye on Piscataway episode. Jim would always have his camera there to take a picture of whoever the guests were on the show. But for anybody who's been over at the Senior Center, they see all the photography pictures up there. That's all from Jim. As a matter of fact, when Piscataway was named one of the best towns to live by Money Magazine, the picture that was submitted to Money Magazine was a picture that Jim had taken of the Newmarket Lake.
Yeah.
And he was credited same thing when AERP National did a story on computer program. There was the photographs were credited to Jim that they were getting to the national magazines. A lot of people don't realize it, that he was really a very good amateur photographer.
And he entered a lot of contests.
Yes, he
He
did.
would forever show you the
Oh, yeah,
pictures on his camera. Which one do you think I should enter into
Yeah.
the contest?
Yeah.
You know, so
And
he
yearly
did.
one time lobby, our township lobby also, his pictures
Yes.
always he present there, yeah.
Yeah, and then he always as a mainstay would enter something in the cultural arts when they would have the photography and paintings down town hall. But that was his love. I think that was his way of decompressing, was going out and taking pictures on different things around the community, and that's what he loved to do.
For sure. And as I said, he always was at the concerts, with the music concerts in the
Taking
summertime.
pictures.
Yeah.
And walking around, taking pictures, enjoying the music. So he had that artistic side of the brain, for sure.
So Camile, one of the last things is that one of the last initiatives that he was trying to do is with the cricket fields.
Yes.
Him being, growing up
Well,
playing
yeah.
cricket as a kid, young
Yeah.
man. He loved that, and he was one of the things he was
And he
trying
was there, 2001, when we cut the ribbon first pitch, and he was there
Yep.
with Bob Smith and everybody, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, with that, we're going to go back to the studio. We have some other remembrance of some other people that want to talk about Jim and some of the other accomplishments during his lifetime. So, thank you, Councilwoman Lombardi and Councilman Shaw, for stopping by.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are here today to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, but we're also here, if I can have everyone's attention, we're also here because we want to remember Jim Bullard, and we also want to make a special dedication to him today.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning. I'm Sharon Carmichael, newly elected councilwoman for Ward 3 here in Piscataway. And I knew Jim way back when my son and his son were little boys playing in sports here in Piscataway. So we were both very active parents supporting our sons on those teams. And I also, when I volunteered for PCTV, Jim, of course, was a volunteer for that as well, and we worked together. And I always knew Jim to be, he would always go the extra mile. He was always very bright. Always looking into things, and he could talk about anything. And I was not involved in politics at all, but I knew him and Lois as I said, supportive parents. But then when Jim found out that I was aspiring to be the councilwoman for Ward 3, he called me up and said, "Hey, girl, I see you're going to join us. If you need anything, you want to know anything, I'm right here for you." And we reminisced about how we had known each other for so many years. He was also, I worked for AT&T. He was also an engineer at AT&T. So, yeah, we knew each other, and he was very supportive and a very kind, gentle, committed man. And Jim was the reason I always voted in the primaries, because he would always come to my door. And then on election day, I would say, I have to go to the polls because I told Jim I would. So that's my fond memory of Jim. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Camile Fernicola, your friend and my friend. You know me as a former councilwoman in Piscataway, and I was a freeholder. Now they call them, what are the commissioners now, county commissioners. And I'm a 53-year resident of Piscataway. I've known Jim many years, but I've never known anyone who was so happy to be alive. You know, every day we wake up and we're happy to be alive. I don't know about you, but I am. And he had a big reason to be happier because he had a new heart and he took total advantage of it. He gave his love to everybody and his time and his energy, and Piscataway is much better off for having Jim Bullard on the Township Council, on the PCTC behind the cameras, and as a member of our community. And I'm very thankful, and I know you are too. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Jim was a very dedicated friend and citizen. I knew him in two aspects. I was his committee woman for Ward 2, District 1, since he became a councilman in 2010. He worked hard for everyone in Piscataway, even though he was in only Ward 2. He loved people in every ward. He didn't care he was only Ward 2 council. He was actually at large and for everyone. He was dedicated to anything he did. He helped anyone he needed in Piscataway as much as he could. He was an important part of the Piscataway Little League and was on the Piscataway Recreational Advisory Board. He also had interest in communication and was active in the Piscataway Community TV. He also loved photography, and you see his work. That's all Jim's pictures on that back wall. So take a look at them. He took all those pictures. He was a great photographer. I knew him best as the advisor to the Senior Citizens Advisory Commission. He was active in the commission and attended meetings regularly until his health deteriorated. He would often advise our members of important issues in the township and help us with ideas for helping the seniors. We are dedicating the computer room to him today in his honor because of the many hours he spent helping and teaching our seniors. Learn their new technology, and you know it's hard. We grew up and had to go to a payphone and everything like that, right? We didn't know anything about this kind of stuff. Jim and Shore were the ones that are bringing us up to date on this. And he got youth to volunteer to help the seniors with computers, who are the best ones. I always go to my grandchildren. Jim will be greatly missed by the seniors with his smiling face and great love of our community.
So we will miss Jim Bullard so much here at the center. He was there for all of you. He tried to get resources for everyone. I spent many hours with him at meetings, conferences, and this beautiful video shows everything that Jim was about. Did you want to say? Okay. Okay. All right. Shore would like to say something. Yes. Okay, we got the plaque here.
Yeah, I'm Chor Lee, and you see me around the computer room. Jim and I were inseparable with the computer room. He was instrumental in bringing the computer room to this senior center. When we doing the renovation, he makes sure that we have a computer room. Then he was looking for someone to run the program, and I volunteered because I know Jim, and we all see Jim as a friendly, charismatic person, and every time you see him, you can't miss that smile of his. So when the legacy that he left us is that big smile when you see Jim at the senior center, and he taught the Excel class at the computer room. So I just want to let you know that we have dedicated a plaque in his honor. We have 2 plaques. These 2 plaques will be mounted in the computer room. So the computer room is now a Jim Bullard computer room.
What is your name, please?
Jim Bullard. I first heard of it on the television by taking a look at the TV, and they were advertising for people to work.
Have you always been interested in television? I mean, not just watching, but when possibly making television. Has that been an interest of yours?
Well, not television per se, but I got into using my camcorder a lot, starting with my son's football, basketball, and baseball games. And as a result of that, now that he has gone on to college, I wanted to just continue with the projects and continue with my hobby. So as a result, this was a good way to do that.
I called him our ambassador of the station. He loved showing people the station, and then he'd take them over to the senior center. It didn't matter how young you were. For example, if it was a person not quite at the retirement age yet, he'd say, "Come on, let me show you what you can look forward to." And he'd take them over to the center and show them through all the different rooms and what have you, introduce them to everybody. Jim thoroughly was proud of Piscataway, and he really did love in showing all of it off.
I didn't have the pleasure to know Jim for long, but he was always such a delightful, smiling face to see at the television center. And next door, to see him at the senior center, just always, he seems so proud of these facilities, as well as the township in whole.
He always talked about being a team in all areas of life. Photography was his hobby, and he shared it with the seniors by taking many photos at the parties, and also by competing in local and state art competitions. Whenever residents would meet Jim Bullard, he left a lasting impression on you, as he is dynamic and charismatic.
One of the fondest memories I have of Jim was when we were doing a sports event, and one of the crew wasn't living up to his capability. After the shoot, Jim had a few words for him. This was unusual. Jim never got upset or had words with other people. We just sat back and watched. It was excellent. That was Jim. I can't say much more. He was dependable. He was a friend. He was a great guy. We'll miss him.
I spend a lot of my time in the community because there are lots of people who need service of that nature. And it's a pleasure to be out there with all. Thank you very, very much.
And that I will faithfully,
justly,
and impartially,
discharge all the duties
of
member of the Township Council,
as a member of the Township Council,
Township of Piscataway,
Ward 2,
to the best of my ability. So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Councilman.
Thank you. By the way, I want to say thank you to all of you. When I called my son, he said, "Go, Dad, go for it." My daughter, "Yes, Dad." Lois says, "What are you going to give up?" And I said, "I'm not quite sure, but I'll give up something." Now, so I want to thank everybody, and I will make sure that I serve you as good as I can. Thank you all.